Question 3. The function g is continuous and a piecewise linear function from 0 to 8 inclusive. The graph of g is shown below. Part A, illustrate the right Riemann sum of g from 0 to 8 for n equals 4 by sketching appropriate rectangles in the figure above. To do this, we'd want to know what delta x is, the change in x. And that's the formula b minus a. This is b and this is a over n. That's 8 minus 0 over 4. So that makes this 2. That means each of our rectangles are going to have a horizontal length of 2, and then 2, and then 2, and then 2. If it's a right Riemann sum, I'm just going to mark where every 2 is here. If it's a right Riemann sum, then the right side of your rectangle touches the height of the curve. So for example, here's the height at 2, here's the height at 4, here's the height at 6, here's the height at 8. So I'm going to draw that, and that rectangle starts from the right and goes to the left since it's right hand. So there's one rectangle. Highlight that. This next one is below, so it's a negative. I go to the left 2 units because delta x is 2. This next one's a bit odd. I've honestly never seen one that happens to be like this, but this height is 0. So that means this rectangle that you see here has an area of 0. This last one is at 8. It looks like so. That's this rectangle. That's part A. Part A is finished. Part B, compute the right Riemann sum of g from 0 to 8 for n equals 4. Show your work. So the area, well, let's say this, the area is about, we're going to take delta x times f of 2 plus delta x times f of 4 plus delta x times f of 6 plus delta x times f of 8. In other words, the base times the height for each of these rectangles. Delta x is the same for each of these. A lot of times we'll just factor that out to the front as a GCF. I guess I'll do that. And then we're adding f of 2 and f of 4 and f of 6 and f of 8 together. Delta x was 2. F of 2, that's the y value when x is 2, is 1. That's right here. F of 4, that y value is negative 1. F of 6, that y value is 0. F of 8, that is a 2. So this ends up being 2 times 2. So the approximate area between the curve and the x-axis is 4 square units. Remember, things on the bottom are minus, things on the top are plus. You can see how those kind of even out. Like, for example, this part and this part are the same size. One's positive, one's negative. And this part does not necessarily take away 2 of these. It takes away more than that, but that's what the approximations do. It's a little off. But that's how you do the problem. C, use geometry to evaluate the integral from 0 to 8. Show your work. Okay. Oh, you can't erase that picture because part A asks you to do that. But essentially all we're doing here, I'm going to break this into, let's see, I'm going to just make this real easy on myself. I'm going to break this apart from 0 to 1, from 1 to 2, from 2 to 3, from 3 to 6, and from 6 to 8. I'm going to break this into, it's a lot of parts. 1, 2, 3 shapes, 4 shapes, 5 shapes. So here's how I'd show my work for this. I'm going to go from 0 to 8 of g of x is equivalent to going from 0 to 1 of g of x plus going from 1 to 2 of g of x plus going from 2 to 3 of g of x dx plus going from 3 to 6 gx dx plus going from 6 to 8 gf x dx. Now this first shape from 0 to 1, that's a triangle. Area of a triangle is 1/2 the base, which is 1, times the height, which is 1. Next one's a rectangle, which is base times height. Next one's a triangle, 1/2 base times height. Next one's a triangle, 1/2 the base times the height. I'm going to call this height a -2, or I could just say, this is the area under, so that whole thing's going to be negative. So once again, I can call that a -2 or call this a minus, either way. Whoops. Plus, this last one is another triangle. Its base is 2 and its height is 2. If you simplify all those, you're going to get 1/2 plus 2 plus 1/2 minus 3 plus 2, if I multiply it correctly. 1/2 and 1/2 is 1, plus 2 more is 3. That cancels out with the 3 that we see as the -3, plus 2. That makes this total equal to 2. Yep, there you go. Part D, I'll be honest with you, I don't know how to do that. Yeah, that does not look familiar to me at all, and I apologize. Part E, find G bar, the average value of G from 0 to 8. You may use your answer from part C. Well, that's cool. To find an average value, you're just going to take 1 over b minus a of the integral of g of x dx from a to b. That's a general formula. You don't have to write that down. But what you should write down is 1/8, because 8 minus 0 is 8, integrating from 0 to 8 of g of x dx. Part C, we found that integral to be 2. So the average value is 1/4. What does that average value mean? It means that if you keep in mind this was estimated, because actually it's not estimated, because part C was an exact answer. It means that if this was like waves of water, and you kind of smoothed it out, this would be the height of the water if it was all smoothed out, 1/4 of the way high. And that concludes question 3, with the exception of part D. Honestly, I haven't seen anything like this since the war.